Imagine stepping into a vast, echoing chamber, filled with souls all stretching toward the same shimmering horizon, success. Some move with steady hands and honest hearts, pouring sweat into their craft, guided by values they refuse to betray. Others glide through the throng with sharper edges, wielding lies like blades, manipulation as their map, trampling anyone who dares to block their path. And yet, as your eyes trace their ascent, it's often those with the coldest resolve who claim the highest peaks, their silhouettes casting long, ominous shadows over the rest. Why does the world seem to tilt in favor of the worst among us? Open the annals of history, peer into the machinations of politics, survey the ruthless arenas of business. Everywhere you look, the evidence glares back. Individuals who shed morality like an old skin rise to wield extraordinary power. From emperors who crushed empires beneath their heels to CEOs who carve fortunes with unyielding ambition, the rhythm of this truth beats relentlessly through time. But this isn't a mere twist of fate. It's a design etched deep into the sinews of human nature, forged by the fires of our evolutionary psychology and the towering structures we've built to house our ambitions. In a world where resources are finite and the hunger for dominance never sleeps, competition becomes a crucible. Those who pause, who seek fairness at every turn, often find themselves stranded in the dust, while those unafraid to exploit, deceive, and command soar to the summits. The question isn't merely why they rise, but whether their triumphs can endure the weight of time, and more urgently, what does their ascent mean for those of us who refuse to let go of our principles, who cling to the light even as the shadows grow long? Picture yourself standing at the threshold of a wild, untamed expanse, a wilderness where survival bows to no creed of compassion or equity. Here, strength is the sovereign, adaptability the currency, and an unrelenting will to do whatever it takes the only law that matters. The lion doesn't bow to ask permission before it hunts. Its roar a declaration of intent, not a plea for approval. The storm doesn't whisper apologies as it tears through the land, its fury a force beyond negotiation. Nature doesn't drape garlands around morality's neck. It crowns those who endure, those who bend the world to their will. Human society, for all its polished facades of laws and social contracts, thrums with the same primal pulse beneath the surface. Those who climb to power often carry a defining mark, ruthlessness, not always a mask of cruelty, but a clarity of purpose unshackled by hesitation or the soft tug of guilt. This isn't a random stroke of luck. It's an ancient mechanism, an evolutionary key that has unlocked dominion for individuals and empires alike in a world that offers no quarter to the faint of heart. Psychologists have traced these threads through the tapestry of human behavior, mapping the traits that herald triumph in the fiercest arenas, a towering ambition that knows no ceiling, a fear so muted it barely whispers, and perhaps most unsettling, and dimmed empathy for those who stand as obstacles. This doesn't paint every powerful soul as a hollow shell, devoid of feeling, but it reveals a steel within them, a capacity to act where others buckle under the weight of conscience. Consider the titans who've etched their names across history's sprawling canvas. Julius Caesar leading legions to redraw the maps of empires, modern moguls forging empires of steel and glass with unrelenting vision. The lesson rings clear: hesitation is a chain that binds, and power is not a gift bestowed, it's a prize seized. The strong don't linger for a nod of approval to lead. They step forward, embrace the risks that others fear, and face the consequences when the dust settles. This is why the ruthless often ascend while the cautious remain cloaked in the twilight. But here's the paradox that twists the narrative: ruthlessness alone is a throne of glass. Those who wield power without the anchor of wisdom often sow the seeds of their own spectacular collapse. The very traits that propel them upward can ignite the flames that consume them. A leader who rules through fear alone will one day find the forces they unleash turning inward, a tide they can no longer command. History is a vast graveyard, littered with the bones of tyrants who deemed themselves invincible, only to crumble when their foundations cracked. So, if power bends toward the ruthless, does this doom morality and fairness to fade into irrelevance? Not entirely. To unravel this knot, we must first dismantle one of society's most cherished illusions, the belief that the world is just. From the cradle, we're cradled in a comforting story that goodness will be met with reward, that justice holds the scales in steady hands. Fairy tales weave it in golden threads, religious teachings carve it into stone tablets, moral philosophies chant it like a hymn. But then we step into the raw light of reality, and the contradiction cuts deep. The hardest workers don't always claim the richest harvests, the most honest voices don't always rise to command, the kindest hearts often bear the heaviest wounds. This rift isn't a flaw stitched into the fabric, it's the fabric itself, the very weave of the system we inhabit. Fairness, in its shimmering allure, is often a construct, a narrative spun to keep the chaos at bay, a soothing balm over a wound that never heals. Power and success aren't parceled out by the gentle hand of merit alone. They're wrested from the fray, fought for with tooth and claw, hoarded by those who've deciphered the game's unspoken code. Psychological research names this the just world fallacy, a quiet faith that life's ledger balances itself, that virtue alone paves the road to triumph. It's a seductive lie, one that lulls us into a passive drift, whispering that goodness will be enough to carry us through. But while we linger, waiting for the scales to tip in our favor, those unbound by such dreams are already carving their paths forward. Does this mean morality is a hollow shell, a relic to be cast aside in the pursuit of power's gleam? Not quite. The secret lies in navigating the game without becoming its captive. Those who suffer most are the ones who cling to the hope that kindness alone will lift them. But those who braid integrity with cunning, who temper compassion with an iron resolve, they're the ones who rewrite the rules in their favor. Fairness isn't a gift dropped into our laps. It's a world we must forge with our own hands, and that forging requires power. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this struggle as the beating heart of existence itself. His answer wasn't to kneel before illusions of justice nor to surrender to mindless brutality, but to reach for something higher, that transcends both weakness and malice. To grasp this, we must dive into one of his boldest visions, the ubermensch. Imagine standing at the edge of a boundless abyss, the wind howling with the weight of possibility. Behind you sprawls the world as it stands, a landscape scarred by injustice, shackled by limits, cloaked in the heavy fog of convention. Before you stretches the unknown, a trail unmarked, a call only the fearless dare answer. Most will falter here, tethered by doubt, their steps halted by the chains of fear. But a rare few will leap. These are the ubermensch, the overcomers, those who rise above the herd, who carve their own destiny from the stone of chaos, who redefine power on terms they alone dictate. Nietzsche's ubermensch isn't a figure of brute force or blind conquest. It's a soul of self-mastery, a refusal to bow as a victim of circumstance, a rejection of morals handed down like worn heirlooms in favor of a path forged anew. At its core burns the will to power, not a petty craving to dominate others, but a primal surge to create, to transform, to imprint meaning onto a void that offers none. Where the weak are ensnared by fear, the ubermensch strides free, unshaken by the mirages society holds dear. Yet, the ubermensch needs no applause. Their strength is a wellspring within, independent of fleeting crowns or hollow victories. The ruthless may clutch power for a moment, playing a short, brutal game of ascent, but the ubermensch plays an infinite one, building something that echoes beyond their time. So how do we walk this path ourselves? How do we thrive in a world that exalts the ruthless without losing the thread of who we are? The answer lies in wielding power not as a weapon to wound, but as a tool to shape. Picture yourself thrust into a high-stakes arena, a coliseum where the rules are scrawled by those who strike to win at any cost. Hesitate, trust in fairness to shield you, and the ground slips beneath your feet. This is the crucible many face, in the cutthroat corridors of business, the shadowed halls of politics, the unyielding currents of life itself. The ruthless know this terrain. They take what they crave with hands unburdened by doubt. Must we mirror them to endure? Not entirely. Too many see only two roads stretching before them: become the predator or remain the prey, a stark choice that leaves no room for nuance. But there's a third way, a fusion of strategy and soul, a chance to vie for power without surrendering the essence of what makes us human. Nietzsche's philosophy wasn't a call to trample others beneath our boots. It was a summons to transcend weakness while holding fast to authenticity. The key is to master power without letting it master you. Here's the truth too many stumble over: life isn't designed to be fair. It never was, and it never will be. The sharpest players grasp this from the outset. They don't waste breath railing against the storm. They learn its rhythms and ride its waves. This isn't about discarding ethics like a worn cloak. It's about seeing power as a neutral force, a current the wise can harness with purpose. Too often, we falter because we lean on kindness alone, trusting it will bear us aloft. But power isn't a gift handed over with a smile. It's a prize claimed through will and wit. That doesn't mean turning cold or cruel. It means peering into the minds of those who'd exploit you, reading their motives like an open scroll, anticipating their moves before they strike. Strategic empathy becomes your compass, letting you navigate deception without weaving it yourself. Fear binds most souls. Fear of falling, fear of scorn, fear of standing alone in the silence. The ubermensch forges an inner fire, embracing the sting of discomfort, carving paths where none exist, stepping forward despite the weight of opposition. There's a chasm between reckless, ruthless, and tempered resolve. The first destroys without aim, a wildfire consuming all in its path. The second makes hard calls with clarity, a blade owned for precision. Power sometimes demands cutting ties that poison the spirit, choosing the unpopular road, facing the mirrors and varnished truth, not cruelty, but courage in its rawest form. The ruthless may soar swiftly, their eyes a blaze of glory, but their flight often ends in ashes, their thrones built on exploitation rather than creation. The true ubermensch builds, whether it's a business that shifts the tides, a vision that lights the dark, a movement that stirs the stagnant, or a personal transformation that defies the odds. When you craft value, you stand unshakable, your power earned through sweat and soul, not snatched through deceit. Can you rise in a world that crowns the ruthless? Yes, but only by rewriting the game, shedding the weight for fairness, and claiming power on your own terms, a power that bends to your will rather than bending you. This journey pulls us at last to the ultimate riddle: is power itself evil, or is it a mirror we've yet to fully face? Power is the force that drives the world, shaping the fates of those who grasp it and those who bend beneath its weight. Is it a dark thread woven into the fabric of existence? Nietzsche saw it through a different lens, not as mere domination, but as creation, a call to outgrow ourselves, to shatter the ceilings of the moment and become more than we ever dared imagine. Yet history ties power to shadow. Leaders who seize it only to drown in the depths of ego, greed, and tyranny, their legacies crumbling under the weight of their own excess. Is power the villain of the tale, or does it simply unveil the deepest flaws we carry within? Nietzsche argued that power in its purest form isn't about breaking others beneath your heel. It's about breaking through, striving for greatness, crafting values that rise above society's script. But the world's moral compass often paints power as corrupt, a seeker of it eyed with suspicion, a figure to be feared rather than understood. What if this is a misstep, a misunderstanding born of fear? What if rejecting handed-down rules and forging your own is the truest pulse of life? Raw, unfiltered, unapologetic, wasn't a petty craving to control others. It wasn't a bit at the edges of your potential to wrestle meaning from the chaos. In this light, power becomes a noble pursuit, a dare to snap free from the chains of convention and define your existence anew, not as a shadow of what came before, but as a beacon of what could be. Yet, not every seeker walks this path with virtue. Power's road forks, one way leading to light, the other plunging into ruin. It hinges on the why behind the chase. Do you seek it to crush others beneath your will, or to climb beyond the limits of your own soul? Power isn't evil at its root. It's a tool, a hammer that can build wonders or shatter lives. In hands of honor, it births unimaginable greatness. in hands of greed, it breeds woe, exposing the darker corners of human nature. Nietzsche's charge to us is clear. Don't shrink from power. Master it. Wield it with discipline, strength, and an unwavering vow to rise beyond the shadow of today, to become more than you are, more than the world expects. Let's linger here, at this crossroads of thought, and peel back the layers further. Why does power so often slip into the grasp of the ruthless? The answer lies not just in their actions, but in the soil from which they spring, a world that rewards the bold and punishes the tentative. Step into the mind of the ruthless for a moment, see through their eyes. They don't linger on the edges, wringing their hands over what's right or fair. They act, decisive as a blade cutting through fog. This isn't always malice. Sometimes it's simply clarity, a refusal to let the noise of doubt drown out their purpose. Evolution has favored this trait across millennia. In the wild, the creature that hesitates starves. In the tribe, the one who falters is left behind. Human society, for all its progress, hasn't shed this ancient skin. We've built towering cities and intricate laws, but beneath it all, the ruthless thrive because they've learned to move with this rhythm. They don't wait for the world to offer them a seat. They carve one from the stone. Contrast this with the gentle soul who pauses, who weighs every step against a scale of virtue. Their hesitation isn't weakness, but it's a luxury the game rarely affords. Nietzsche saw this divide as more than a clash of temperaments. He framed it as a war of moralities, master versus slave, two currents pulling humanity in opposite directions. Master morality, as Nietzsche envisioned it, is the creed of the strong, the rulers, the conquerors who shape the world to their will. It's a philosophy rooted in values that sing of life's raw vigor, strength, courage, ambition, power. To the masters, what is good is what fuels their ascent, what sharpens their ability to dominate, to create, to assert their presence upon the chaos. They don't seek the world's approval. They define their worth by their own measure, taking responsibility for their fate without a glance backward. Weakness, in their eyes, isn't a trait to be cradled or pitied. It's a hurdle to be vaulted, a shadow to be outrun. Slave morality, by contrast, rises from the oppressed, the powerless, those who can't bend the world to their desires. Instead of exalting strength, it lifts humility, obedience, self-sacrifice onto a pedestal, painting suffering as noble and power as a stain to be scrubbed clean. Nietzsche saw this as a creation born of necessity, a psychological shield for those who couldn't seize control, a way to endure a world ruled by the mighty. But here's the sting in the tail. Slave morality doesn't halt the ruthless, it clears their path. By condemning ambition, by shaming the hunger for power, it leaves the field open for those who scoff at such restraints, who care nothing for the rules of the meek. While the noble-hearted pause, wrestling with their conscience, those who embrace master morality charge forward, and in a world where hesitation is defeat, the outcome is inevitable. Does this mean we must abandon all virtue and join the ruthless in their race? Or is there a way to weave strength and goodness into a single thread, a way to stand tall without losing our soul? Let's plunge deeper into this tension, into the psychology of those who rise, those who refuse to be swept aside by the tides of circumstance. Imagine a battlefield, two warriors locked in the fray. One stands tall, decisive, fearless. He takes what he wants, molds the world to his vision, and asks no one's leave to do so. The other wavers, seeking a nod from the crowd, chasing fairness, hoping the universe will repay his virtue with victory. Which of these two will emerge from the dust? Which will etch their name into the stone of time? Nietzsche argued that morality itself isn't a universal truth dropped from the heavens. It's a master morality celebrates the doers, the shapers, those who see life as a canvas to paint with bold strokes. Slave morality, meanwhile, comforts the done, the shaped, those who find solace in turning the other cheek, in believing that their quiet endurance will win the day. But the world doesn't pause for such hopes. It pins on, rewarding those who act, not those who wait. This isn't to say the ruthless are invincible. Their victories often glitter with a hollow sheen. History tells us of emperors who ruled with iron fists only to see their empires fracture, of tycoons who amassed wealth only to die alone, their legacies crumbling like sandcastles against the tide. Ruthlessness can lift you high, but without wisdom, it's a ladder with no top, a climb that ends in freefall. The challenge, then, is to find a way to harness power's might without letting it hollow you out, to compete in a world that favors the bold without surrendering the values that anchor you. How do we do this? How do we navigate a landscape where the ruthless seem to hold all the cards? Picture yourself in a high-stakes game, a chessboard where every move counts, where the players who win are the ones who see 3 steps ahead. The ruthless don't waste time mourning the rules, they study them, bend them, break them if they must. But you don't have to become them to play. The mistake is thinking the choice is binary, ruthlessness or ruin, predator or prey. There's a middle path, a way to blend strategy with integrity, to wield power without letting it wield you. Nietzsche's vision wasn't about blind domination. It was about rising above weakness while staying true to your core. Start by shedding the illusion that life owes you fairness. It doesn't, and it never did. The strongest players accept this early. They don't curse the wind, they adjust their sails. This isn't about abandoning ethics. It's about recognizing that power is a force without a moral hue, a river you can steer if you learn its currents. Too many falter because they trust kindness to pave their way, but power isn't handed over with a bow. It's taken, wrested from the hands of those who'd keep it for themselves. That doesn't mean turning your back on compassion. It means arming yourself with insight, understanding the minds of those who'd use you, seeing their moves before they make them. Strategic empathy becomes your shield, letting you sidestep traps without setting your own. Fear is the chain that binds most. Fear of failure, of rejection, of standing alone against the storm. The ubermensch, Nietzsche's ideal, breaks those chains, embracing discomfort as a forge, crafting opportunities where others see only walls. There's a difference between ruthlessness without soul and ruthlessness with purpose. The first is a wildfire that consumes all. The second is a controlled burn, clearing the way for growth. Power sometimes means making the hard call, walking away from what drags you down, standing firm when the crowd sways, facing truth that sting, not cruelty, but strength in its purest form. The ruthless may rise fast, their ascent a blaze of triumph, but their fall is often just as swift, their power built on and not stone. The ubermensch builds a life, a legacy, a truth that endures. When you create something of value, you don't need to claw your way up. Your power grows from within, unshakable, undeniable. But let's not stop here. Let's turn the lens inward, ask the question that lingers like a shadow. Is power itself the enemy, or is it a force we've misjudged? Power is the heartbeat of the world, driving the tides of history, shaping the lives of those who hold it and those who kneel beneath. Is it a dark seed planted in our nature? Nietzsche saw it differently, not as a tool for crushing others, but as a spark for creation, a call to transcend ourselves, to break the chains of the moment and become more than we ever dreamed. Yet history binds power to corruption, leaders who grasp it only to fall into ego's abyss, greed's snare, tyranny's grip. Is power the serpent in the garden, or does it merely reflect the flaws we carry within? Nietzsche argued that power, in its truest essence, isn't about domination for its own sake. It's about overcoming, reaching for greatness, crafting values that defy the scripts we're handed. Society's moral lens often casts power as a villain, a seeker of it branded with suspicion, a figure to be watched rather than welcomed. But what if this is a mistake, a fear born of misunderstanding? What if rejecting the rules we're given and forging our own is the most authentic way to live, raw, unfiltered, unapologetic in its fire? The will to power, to Nietzsche, wasn't about lording over others. It was an inner flame, a drive to live fire, to push the boundaries of what you can be, to wrestle meaning from a world. And in this light, power becomes a sacred chase, a challenge to break free from the weight of convention and define your existence on your terms, not as an echo of the past, but as a shout into the future. Yet, not every hand that reaches for power holds it with grace. The path splits, one road to enlightenment, the other to ruin. It hinges on intent. Do you seek power to bind others or to unbind yourself? Power isn't evil by birth, it's a hammer. In hands of integrity it builds wonders, in hands of selfishness it shatters lives. Nietzsche's dare is this: don't fear power, claim it, wield it with discipline, strength, and a vow to rise beyond the shadow of now, to become more than you are, more than the world demands. Let's stretch this thought further. Explore the dance between power and morality across the ages. History is a mirror, reflecting both the heights power can reach and the depths it can drag us into. Think of the emperors who built empires on the backs of the conquered, their names immortalized in stone, yet their reigns often ended in blood and betrayal. Think of the innovators who reshaped the world, their ambition a beacon, yet their personal lives often a wreckage of broken bonds. Power doesn't discriminate. It flows to those who dare to take it, whether their hearts are pure or shadowed. Nietzsche's master morality finds its echo in these figures, the ones who saw life as a canvas for their will, who didn't flinch at the cost. Slave morality, meanwhile, whispers through the masses, the ones who endured, who turned suffering into a virtue, who hoped for a reckoning that rarely came. But the ruthless don't win every battle. Their victories are often Pyrrhic, glittering today, dust tomorrow. The ubermensch, by contrast, isn't just a conqueror, they're a creator. Their power isn't borrowed from others, it's forged within, a flame that doesn't need to steal oxygen to burn. This is the hope Nietzsche offers, not a world where the ruthless reign forever, but a world where we can rise above them, not by mimicking their brutality, but by outbuttling their destruction. The ruthless play a game of subtraction, taking from others to fill their own cups. The ubermensch plays a game of addition, adding to the world, to themselves, to the possibilities of what life can be. So where does this leave us, standing in the midst of a world that seems to cheer the ruthless on? It leaves us with a choice, a chance to redefine power not as a crown to snatch, but as a seed to plant. The ruthless may climb by stepping on necks, but their height is borrowed, their fall a matter of when, not if. You can rise differently, not by abandoning morality, but by arming it with wisdom, not by shedding kindness, but by sharpening it with strategy. Nietzsche's ubermensch isn't a call to become a tyrant. It's a call to become a force, a creator who doesn't need to destroy to thrive. The world won't hand you fairness. It won't bow to your goodness, but it will bend to your will if you learn its ways. Build something, a life, a dream, a truth that stands taller than the towers of the ruthless, not because it crushes them, but because it outlasts them. Power isn't the enemy, it's the clay. Shape it with purpose, and you'll find it can hold more than you ever imagined. If this exploration of power, morality, and the human spirit has stirred your soul, challenged your foundations, and kindled a hunger to delve deeper into life's vast mysteries, then step into the journey with us at True Freedom. Hit that subscribe button to join the quest. Tap like to fuel this flame. Share this truth with those who need its light. And let your voice echo in the comments below. What moved you? What do you yearn to uncover next? Together, let's pursue understanding, growth, and a life in